Over the past couple of months, Capcom's reputation has tanked because of Monster Hunter Wilds. They released a buggy and broken game, and then recently they announced a big new patch was released to fix all the problems, and really they just broke the game even more. The scores for this title have tanked, the player counts have tanked insanely, and now they have canceled their lecture about Monster Hunter Wilds optimization, but instead of saying it's because their game isn't optimized, the developers are saying that they have faced so many threats and harassment that they decided to opt out. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, obviously, nobody deserves to get harassed for making a game, whether it is good or it is bad. They do not deserve to face harassment, but we do not really know what the definition of like harassment is here. Of course, if you cross a line and you are wishing harm to somebody physically or threatening their lives, that is completely unacceptable. Unfortunately, though, when the conversation of harassment comes up now, we have to wonder, because we have seen a lot of people claim that they've faced hatred and harassment, and really, people are just on social media criticizing them. So we don't really know how far this goes. It is unfortunate, though, that there might be some of these developers who have faced, big problems, and that's never okay. But they canceled this lecture that they were supposed to do about optimization, and we all know that their game is getting absolutely wrecked right now because of how poorly optimized it is. So it really makes you wonder, did they back out truly because of harassment? So it says Capcom has announced the cancellation of a planned lecture on Monster Hunter Wilds optimization at Japan's CEDEC 2025 conference. This decision likely has to do with harassment and targeted threats its staff has been facing over Monster Hunter Wilds performance issues. Now, I decided to do a little bit of digging on this. I couldn't find throughout any of the articles any examples or even any developers who have stated on social media that they faced a lot of backlash or pressure. Now, again, I'm not saying that it's not happening, right? It most certainly could be, and there are always going to be bad apples in every bunch. When you have millions and millions of people looking at your product and buying it and people who are disappointed, yeah, sometimes there are going to be people who cross a line, but it is just very difficult in this day and age to sit here and kind of give them the benefit of the doubt, especially with how this lecture at this conference was supposed to be on optimization when that is the number one criticism people have about Monster Hunter Wilds. I mean, if they were really going to go to this lecture and do this lecture, I'd hope that it would be on what not to do in terms of optimization. Among these, a session titled Making Monster Hunter Wilds Run Smoothly, Everything You Need to Know About Optimization, has been canceled. Monster Hunter Wilds doesn't really run smoothly for most people. Even if you have a behemoth of a PC, you might face problems, and recently I talked about this in another video that'll be linked down below. They had released a big patch that was basically supposed to end all of the problems people had at initial release, all of those technical difficulties, right? But when they tried to fix, let's say, 5 things, they broke 15 others. There are a ton of other problems that gamers are now facing, and that's just unfortunate because when you pay $60 or $70 for an experience, right, you expect to be able to play it. And in some cases, people couldn't even freaking play this game because it was just so broken. It says that they were supposed to cover the technicalities of performance tuning using real-life examples from Monster Hunter Wilds development, with the engineers covering issues related to CPU, GPU, and memory load. While Capcom did not officially specify the reason for the cancellation, it likely relates to the recent backlash surrounding the game. On June 30th, Monster Hunter Wilds got its long-awaited free title update 2, which introduced new monsters. However, following the update, players began reporting critical bugs, frame rate drops, and crashes, and a patch was released on July 1st, but some players reported CPU usage spikes after installing the update. And yeah, if you go on over to Steam, it does not look very good. The overall reviews are mixed, so it did actually go up because it used to be negative, so that's good, but the recent reviews are all negative, overwhelmingly negative, in fact, with 20,705. Most of these people are just saying, it would be a great game if it wasn't broken. Now, I don't think Monster Hunter Wilds is the best Monster Hunter by any means. Rise and 4 Ultimate are still significantly better, but it had a lot going for it, right? I did still enjoy my time in the game. It just felt like it held your hand a little bit too much. Maybe that's good for the new players, but for the established players, it didn't really add to the experience, and it's just clear that most players, new or old, are having major problems with this game, unfortunately. You've got tons of people who are saying they're veteran Monster Hunter players, and Wilds sincerely worries them. This one says, the reason I fell in love with Monster Hunter in the first place was the deep sense of immersion and progression present in older games. There used to exist the perfect amount of friction, so to speak. Quests needed to be properly prepared for, monsters needed to be learned, each map needed to be explored and studied, gear needed to be earned by grinding hunts. Old Monster Hunter gameplay was a well-polished and addictive feedback loop. Wilds is an autopilot version of Monster Hunter I used to love. Optimizing gear no longer matters. The monsters die no matter what. There's no need to learn the maps. Your mount automatically takes you to the monsters, which are now permanently visible on the map. Monsters just give 2 or 3 times the reward they used to, so no need to hunt a monster more than a few times for the weapon you want. I mean, there are just, a lot of problems with this game. And there have been a lot of really amazing Monster Hunters in the past, and I do think that Wilds does some things right. I just feel like it's not the best experience they could have created. Content wise, of course, optimization wise, it's absolutely fucking trash. Though it still needs better optimization, I love the game nonetheless. Here's some recommendeds. It's pretty good, but the performance leaves a bit to be desired. The story and characters are great. The weapon changes are a mixed bag. A lot of it feels like they don't punish bad positioning and timing as much as previous games, but this may change in the expansion. Low-high ranks are much easier. There aren't really any progression walls where you have to be intentional about your equipment build. I think the art direction could have been better. It's taken a realistic style where it probably isn't necessary. And while there are some positives, of course, there are many, many negatives. Game itself is pretty fun, but the performance, yeesh. A game that doesn't look much better than World while running worse than Dragon's Dogma 2 is something to be studied. It looks like Assassin's Creed Black Flag, but runs like Cyberpunk 2077 with path tracing. I can't go 5 to 10 minutes of gameplay before the whole game crashes. It does not run well. Game's going in the wrong direction. I'm so disappointed with the optimization. There is no way my system can play this game at the low setting, let alone at medium setting, while I can play Black Myth Wukong at max graphics. This is ridiculous, and I might stop buying any of your games from this point on at launch until I read enough reviews saying that you actually created a playable game in the future. And every time a company releases a game that is buggy or broken or has bad optimization, all they're really doing is damaging their reputation. If this had launched in a perfect state, I think that it would have been a really, really popular game. And while it has seen success, given the amount of copies it sold, if you can't keep those players around, then you can't keep making money off of people, which of course is a major problem for companies like this. And as you can see, this is one of the most historic drop-offs in player count I have ever seen. This is just Steam, so we don't know console numbers, but holy shit, that is insanely bad. All-time peak at release was 1.3 million, nearly 1.4 million players. And in-game right now is 17,162, and the 24-hour peak is 36,891. That is abysmal for Capcom, and sure, they really only care that they got your initial purchase, but if they can't keep players around and they lose that player trust, they're not going to see 1.4 million copies sold. Well, significantly more than that, but 1.4 million copies sold at least on one single platform. There are going to be so many people who are going to avoid your titles in the future. I mean, the owner estimations are really solid at 5.57, 5.77, 7.79. I don't believe Steam Spy at, 50 million, but let's say it's 7 million for argument's sake on Steam and 7 million on console. Let's say sold 14 million copies total. You might in the future only get 12 million purchasing your game, or 10 million purchasing your game, and that number is going to decline if every single game you launch is going to be a buggy and broken mess. So I, of course, will be keeping my eye on this situation. Again, there is backlash that they are facing right now. But is it threats and harassment? I'm not necessarily sure. It just seems like a very easy excuse to use to get out of this presentation when their game is in such a god awful state. Of course, hatred and harassment should not be sent to these people. If you are upset with the state of the game, leave a bad review on the platform you purchased on, discuss it on social media. Don't send any threats or hatred to the developers themselves, but we don't really know what falls under the harassment category at this point. And when the lecture was on optimization, and this is one of the worst optimized games to release in 2025 and just over the past few years, it does look pretty convenient that they are now getting out of this lecture. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.